Hello everyone and welcome back to the Brightworks. Today we've got a match that covers all of the ranges from the very tippity top of the skill ranks all the way down to the very bottom of the barrel. Well, maybe bottom of the barrel isn't quite fair to say, but definitely down into the lower echelons where players are still learning the game, which is always exciting to see because it does mean that we get to watch some learning in progress, as I like to put it. Anyways, meeting our team leaders here, spawning in the northeastern corner, representing the blue team, it's going to be Markivs. I'm just realizing now that in my head I've always said this as Markivs, but it is in fact an IVS, so Markivs or Markivs. Anyways, aside from my blown mind, spawning in the southwestern corner, representing the red team, dressed up in the brilliant red Cortex colors, we have Koi Ya Boy. Now, Koi Ya Boy is a name that I do not recognize, making their debut here on the Brightworks channel, and I'm happy to have them. Love to have new players, and I'm surprised. I mean, 44 true skill and the silver to match. Yeah, definitely going to be bringing out some really good stuff, so I'm excited to see what goes down in this match. Other notable positions on this map, the front line for the red team is going to be held by Zulu and Veldan, going to be the brown and pink player respectively. The the shoreline position is going to be held by Master Toby here in yellow as an Armada commander, going for hovercraft. Quite interesting. I like to see it, mixing up the strategies just a little bit. Always interesting because you can catch your enemies off guard a little bit. Spawning in the sea lane position is going to be Her Bubbles. Her Bubbles going for a bot lab, and I think that's probably a good decision. She is getting a couple of these res bots out and about on the field, and probably eventually going to transition here either into a naval lab, maybe a hovercraft lab, maybe even an aircraft lab. Depends on what the overall general strategy is going to be, whether we see them contributing to the front lines or whether she decides to just go for the naval victory. Anyway, eating up all these rocks over here is quite nice. They are queued eventually to get eaten up anyways. That's really nicely done. Yeah, that's a good 200 or so rocks that can fold right back into your pockets, and I do love to see that. For the blue team on the front line, it's going to be Davos Grant and Sprouticus holding on to the Supreme Strait. Name drop, right? If you're not familiar, this is a map called Supreme Strait, version 1.4. It's a tried and true, tested classic, and if you're into the game at all, you're definitely going to become very familiar with this map. Now, I like this position here. What we've seen recently is that buildup of vehicles, right? We've seen a lot of players going for that really cheesy 5 to 8 minute vehicle rush. You just basically pull up a ton of vehicles in the back, right around here or right around here. Obviously, this map is mirrored, so both teams can do that. And it's a very, very powerful strategy. It allows you to hit the enemy with a very, very potent timing attack where they're kind of sort of starting to get into T2, and so a lot of their money is in T2 labs if they're attacking really, really greedily. And then you can suddenly swarm through with a whole bunch of tanks and ravage the front lines. It's a very dangerous move, but the rise in prevalence of it has also made people more aware of that, and so people are becoming more and more cautious, I feel, about the positioning on the front lines and making sure that there's enough units out, making sure the support is there, and not just the eco in the backline. Anyway, Markivs here on the shoreline position for the blue team already has that naval lab out and about and has a couple of units across the way. There is a single missile launcher corvette here going across the map. It's a little bit too late, though, to catch this constructor that was sent out by Koi Ya Boy that's going to build a little bit of a forward position over here on this island. I do like to see that. Getting these metal extractors on both of these islands, both on the northwestern and the southeastern island, are very, very good positions to be in. Very powerful positions. A little bit of aggression here. Wow, what a twisted series of events we have here. We have a coastal torpedo launcher firing out into the ocean at a grunt that is positioned in the water. That is a messed up series of events. We don't see that very often. Veldan moving forward and de-gunning some of these static defenses here by Sprouticus, scuffing up the armor plating on that commander, bringing it down to 70% health. But all is well and good. That commander is more than happy to take that light damage on its hull. It will repair itself, of course, and so all is not lost. Let me tweak the water settings for a second here. /water 1. Oh wow, look at that. That's very interesting. I actually kind of like it. Yeah, we'll play with /water 1 for now. Kind of makes the waves go away, so you can actually see the water more or less kind of more clearly. You can see into the depths of the water. A little bit harder to judge the scale, like how far up those ships are, how deep the water is, but you kind of get that with the color of it, right? Yeah, we'll give it a try. Why not? Makes these oceans look a whole lot more ocean-like, at least in my opinion. Davos Grant is holding the front line, but it's just with the commander, and there are now artillery trucks as well as missile trucks and a couple of blitzes for that harassment. Things are starting to ramp up quickly here for the red team, and there's just not the same amount of force being applied from the blue team. So I'm really getting concerned here that the blue team is going to eventually crumble under all this missile truck fire. I mean, more and more of them are rolling out to the front lines, and we all know just how dangerous those things can be. As soon as they get within range, they can start chipping away at all of your units, and it doesn't take very long before things that you love on the front line begin to die. Not to be over dramatic or anything. So this is nice. Napoleon Bonaparte has, that's a funny name by the way, has gone up to the T2 stage, and I would love to see some T2 constructors handed around to basically anybody who's fighting on the front line. You should always prioritize them before anybody else. So I'd love to see a T2 constructor passed around between all the different players here, between our beloved Zulu, Veldon, as well as Quickster, who's contributing some of those artillery on the front line as well. I'm going to turn down the music just a smidge here. Always tweaking, always modifying, always trying to come up with the best that we can possibly be. Now, Dot has abandoned all hope, ye who enter here, of getting into the water, just resigning to the fact that the naval field is already lost, despite it not really being. This is all hovercraft, not naval craft, and the hovercraft are quite a bit weaker than the Navy. So if you manage to get a couple of ships out, you could probably pretty easily spiral it into a victory here. And that being said, Dot is a Cortex commander, and so their Navy's a little bit harder to get up and running. Whereas Armada, you just start producing a whole bunch of Dolphins, and eventually you're going to be in a decent enough position. At least until you start going up against more complex compositions here. Looks like her Bubbles was shut down as well. She's been forced out of the water, and now there is only coastal torpedo launchers to defend the shores from incoming harassment. Nicely done moving these units in and getting a nice little position here to make sure that there's some sort of constant pressure applied. I would love to see a resurrection sub being sent across the map to eat up all of this juicy metal. That's at least a couple hundred metal lying on the C4 here. Our metal vision should kick in every in just a second here. There we go. Yeah, a couple hundred, about 1.2 thousand metal left over in debris on the bottom of the ocean floor. That's always lovely to get your greedy little grubby hands on. And by yours, I mean mine. Ever since having that new and improved metal vision thing, it has become very, very convenient to look around and judge where I should be spending my metal. So this is nice. Dot has actually sent the commander out in this direction, also getting a naval lab up and running in this little cove over here. It's a little bit more protected, a little secluded, and it's yeah, it's going to be quite nice. Now there are some hovercraft here, the rocket hovercraft specifically, and they're pretty good at tearing down this T1 defense. It's very nice that we brought 3 of them. I believe that's exactly how many it takes to destroy one of these light laser towers. Yeah, I do believe that is correct. Once those are down, obviously the skaters here, seekers rather, can push forward and get a little bit of work done. But these hovercraft have been caught off guard by a whole bunch of these assault frigates that have swept in from the naval side. Master Toby is now realizing that there's actually something to this. This player is not just given up at this point, but there's no defenses here. So at the very least, yeah, it's gonna be a little bit of damage done by these seekers. Checking across the rest of the map, and it looks like essentially a stagnation in the middle of the map. Can't get some music going for the life of me here. I need you in my life. Oh, Russell Lucas. That's not our normal guy. Subbing in for our regularly scheduled programming. Desperately in need of some help here. I think the teammates definitely need to get a couple of units out and about to try and help. Otherwise, this base is just going to be down permanently. Dot going for some of those naval fortifications. That's interesting. We don't see those very often, but they are fun to see whenever they do come into play. Gauntlet has been built in the front line. Very expensive unit, especially considering the T1 stage. 1,250 metal. That's almost half of the price of a T3 lab. T3 land lab anyway, land labbers. But yeah, these are definitely getting value. You can see them just shelling away at these units over here, and every time that they land a hit, they just gain a little bit more value. They also gain a little bit of experience and start to fire even faster as well, so not to be underestimated, but certainly a heavy investment, and so I love to see that these missile trucks are here to shut down anything that might get a little too close and personal, especially those shuriken. Missile trucks are great for countering the shuriken, which is one of the ways that you can shut down static defense like that. Markiv has gone for a forward air lab over on this island here. Quite interesting. Still producing ships out of this lab as well, which is also interesting. Because it's a huge metal drain. Yeah, making a destroyer at the moment right now. 960 metal going into that bad boy. Very, very pricey, but it can definitely do some damage. There's already one destroyer out. I think, frankly, we've got enough naval units. Yeah, I would say we're probably doing well enough on the naval field at the moment, and I think going into air is probably a really good idea. What I'd love to see is a little preliminary scout. We're 10 minutes into the game, so it's kind of expected that early vehicle rush isn't really going to be a thing. Ooh, looks like one of the crabs did explode right there. How gory! Oh boy. Hover tanks giving these assault frigates a hard time here. Looks like a destroyer is just about to finish, but it is going right out into enemy territory. Oh, interesting. Okay, so some shuriken have come out here, and they're going to try and help shut down a lot of these units. I love to see it. That's a great way to turn this tide here. Make this battle a little bit easier to fight. The shuriken are a little late, though. It'd be a lot easier if those riptides were still alive, but they're not. And I have a feeling that this lab is probably going to go down here. I think there's enough hover tanks to overwhelm the build power from this single construction turret as well as this naval constructor. Yep, there goes the lab. The shuriken also go down eventually as well, and that hurts. That is a lot of metal right down the drain for Dot Dot, who is also in a really bad position because these metal extractors never came back up and online. Dot Dot is hurting pretty bad right now. Luckily, he has these energy converters. Oh, I see. I was wondering, Dot Dot has 72 metal per second. I was going to say, what on earth? Did they eco in the backline or something? And I didn't see it. No. They're just reclaiming their lab with this constructor here, so there's tons of metal flowing in at the moment. But for the time being, the only metal being harvested is out of this metal extractor as well as whatever's being converted off of these wind turbines. Whoa, some tumbleweeds find a commander right there. That's an excellent pick. Probably not what those tumbleweeds were looking for, but that's a great use for them. Yeah, snipe a commander if you can. No reason not to. Takes your enemies down, and now there is a solid 7 versus 7 up on the field. Backlines are looking a little bit shallow at the moment, I'm not gonna lie. I would expect a little bit more out of the economies in the backline at this point. I would probably expect at least a fusion reactor and probably starting up a second one by this point. Definitely don't forget to eat up your first fusion reactor when you're in this position here. Just build a battery and you'll be all set. Either way, though, this advanced fusion reactor will come up fairly shortly here. There's a pretty good amount of metal in the bank. I wonder if we did have a fusion reactor and just did already eat that up. That's definitely possible, especially considering that there's these wind turbines here. It's either that or went for a T2 lab, one of the two. Typically what you do is you have multiple people in the backline, so one of them will tech and the other ones will do something else. They'll either air or they'll go for some sort of shenanigans, whatever it may be. Oh, nice commander explosion. Takes out almost the entire army here. A single hover tank remains with 5% health left. It sucks that the commander went down, but really that was an excellent trade, all things considered, because losing that commander is well worth shutting down that entire push that could have easily ravaged the entire backline here of the blue team. Nicely done. It's about time we start thinking about some way to actually harass the land here. This destroyer's been firing away over here. Markvis has even moved the commander into position. It's really a shame that we haven't eaten up all this metal, though. Markiv. Not sure why that's so difficult for me. I mean, I guess I've just been saying Markvis for so long, but it is not Markvis. If you're watching this, Markvis, I do sincerely apologize. Bunch of platypus over here. Sea raid coming soon. Yeah, Napoleon Bonaparte trying to organize a little bit of a sea raid here, but they are under fire. What is shooting at them? Oh, it's a single Sheldon. One Sheldon in the mix is lobbing projectiles over here, not doing much damage, but they are grouped up, so it is hitting a few of them every single time. Every tingle time. Got that dyslexia on max here. Woke up today, made myself 3 crepes, got back in bed. So it's been a pretty good morning. Been a pretty good morning. Figured I would hop online, see what everyone was up to, check my email, see if anybody sent in anything good. There's a replay that I was sent recently that was a hour and a few minutes, like an hour and 2 minutes or something long speed metal match, and boy, I am curious what on earth you could be doing on speed metal for an hour and for over an hour. That map is supposed to be quick. I have no idea what you could even do to make that match last that long. Still hesitant about whether I should cover that one or not. Maybe you guys can let me know down below if that's something that you'd be interested in seeing. I'm certainly curious, just for the sheer fact that I have no clue how a speed metal match lasts that long. Anyway, shurikens are out now, but these platypus do have an anti-air rocket. It is abysmal. One of those rockets can't even kill a shuriken in one hit. It takes 2. But still, there are plenty of platypus, so eventually those shuriken will go down, not halting in the slightest this massive push from the southern side. Very nicely done by Napoleon to make sure to contribute all over the place. I do see these T2 units, the Hounds, pushing out and going up towards the front line, and then also getting some of these platypus across to do damage to the sea lanes. It's teamwork, right? Teamwork makes the dream work, and we've certainly got some really nice teamwork here. Another thing that is often discounted, but certainly shouldn't be, is the fact that this anti-air moving into the backline here is going to thin out that air wall, right? Especially early on in the games when you're not just mass-producing tremendous, just ridiculous amounts of fighters. You taking down a couple of fighters here and there with some of these platypus is definitely going to be worthwhile to consider a bombing run or something to that caliber. Because you never know, you might actually end up doing way more damage with the follow-up bombing run to this platypus run by than you actually even do with the platypus. Platypus, as well as ducks, which I learned fairly recently, are pretty abysmal on land. They don't really have very many land capabilities. The platypus, I feel like, is a little bit better on land, but worse in the water. Whereas the duck is a little bit better in the water, but worse on land. Anyway, the fusion reactor is under siege here, and it does go up. Takes out the platypus, but well worth it because it also blew up basically everything else in Cornelius's base. Laughing at that name because something about it just sounds oh so funny. Bunch of Seekers moving into the backline here. Master Toby doing an excellent job of continuing to be quite annoying here. Moving units into the back as much as possible to continue doing damage. Basically, every time you hit the backline player, whether you kill very much economy or not, you're always going to be slowing them down, and that's always worthwhile. It's just buying your team those precious seconds, right? I mean, you think about the backline, it's basically just a exponential growth. So the more you stunt it earlier on, the longer it's going to take for it to build up here. Proper T2 battle out now. We have the Mauser firing away a long distance, Sheldon as well, radar jammers, all that good stuff. There's a couple of ambassadors even, the rocket launcher vehicle for the Armada faction. Very slow, very stealthy, very sneaky boys, but they launch a devastating missile. It can tear through most units with a single punch. Starlights are out and they're the ultimate siege weapon. They can blast through even the heavy armor of the Bull in just a couple of strikes. Here come those ambassador missiles. You can see, oh, just barely, narrowly missing this Mauser here. Poor Mauser would have just evaporated into thin air under the fire of those heavy rocket launchers. They seriously cannot be underestimated. Well, I guess I shouldn't say they can't be, but you shouldn't underestimate them. Very epic battle. We also have some amphibious tanks rolling their way up the hills. This was completely unseen here. So it looks like, for the time being, Devil's Grunt is going to get a nice little run by into Zulu's main base here. No units to deal with these little amphibious tanks. These light amphibious tanks are available at the moment, so it's going to have to be the Hounds that make their way off the front line to clean this up. And it's not a terrible trade, but it's certainly not the best that you would hope for. Oh, Strategic Bomber does get a nice little run by there, doing a ton of damage. Eventually, these units just stop moving. A little bit of an APM stall there, and the Hounds will quickly mop it all up, as well as these Strategic Bombers. Doing a little bit of friendly fire damage, but definitely more throughput was on the enemy than there was on the friendly units there. Eventually, you'd think that they would start to build some sort of static defense on this side, but it seems like the blue team has just decided to let the Seekers pour in and deal with them one by one. It's forcing the backline air player to go really heavily into these gunships, the Wasps, which are really good, but yeah, I mean, they're expensive, right? And every Wasp that you produce is a potential fighter or two that you could have produced. Actually, it's a couple fighters. I believe it's about 3 fighters that could be out on the field, and well, let's just say when bombers start rolling towards your base, you're going to be a lot happier to have a bunch of fighters than a bunch of gunships. Yeah, I'm getting worried here. Wow, what a maze we've got going on over here. This is quite impressive. We've got these T2 fortifications going down. Are we going to extend this? I would love to see this extended. Doing the old maze kite trick where you just build a maze like this, and then you build a maze like this, then you build a maze like this, like this. I don't know where it's pulling from, but anyway, you get the idea. Fighters are moving in, and again, those gunships are going to be real panicky. No fighters out whatsoever. I mean, there's a couple of T1 fighters, I suppose, but nowhere near the amount of T2. Yeah, these are all T2 fighters going up against T1, and that trade is fairly efficient. Tons of those gunships got destroyed, which really sucks. Very, very costly. Yeah, you really want to avoid that if at all possible. Bombers having essentially a free ride all the way into the backline here. They are going to drop enough bombs to blow up a whole fusion reactor here. At this point, they are also going to switch targets and move into the backline. Rika is... yeah, Rika. It's like Ricky, but Ricky. It won't matter because Ricky is now reduced to a few anti-air turrets. 2 SAM turrets, the long-range anti-air turrets, and a single chainsaw. Yeah, this is game over, right? I mean, this is a devastating bombering run. The backline is now completely devastated. There's tons of pawns actually running across the map. That's interesting. Those must have been what Ricky was working on in the backline here, the green player was working on. I guess it was not enough, though, because, maybe I spoke too soon here. A lot of them are leaking through. There's not really a lot of light static defense here. It's mostly just a whole lot of anti-air. Just a couple of flak turrets, some of these nettles, the light anti-air towers. Wow, okay, these pawns are actually making it pretty far, a whole lot further than I would have thought. Would love to see these missile ships rather turn around and go bombard this upper area. The wall is still growing on the sea lane over there. Wow. Okay. Well, Ricky's dying breath actually managed to sneak quite a lot of units through and do a fair amount of damage. I'm pretty surprised. Yeah, these pawns actually just happened to come out at just the right time. They leaked through when no one was looking, I suppose, and now even the anti-nuke is going to go down here. I do believe, anyways. Yep, there it goes with a little bit of help from those missile ships. Big chain reaction down here, and Napoleon Bonaparte's base is under siege. The pawn army sweeps through. I guess that's all it takes. It's 400 pawns in order to break the line. That's forcing all the units back to come deal with this, but it means that the front lines can get pushed in. Suddenly, the blue team is coming all the way back from that bombing run. What on earth is this turnaround? That bombing run should have won the game, but it looks like everyone on the front line just decided not to continue the fight, and a bunch of pawns just ravaged the entire front line, going to show that the pawn gives the tech a run for its money as far as the best unit in the game goes. Now the Razorbacks are out, though. If there's one unit that does a decent job of cleaning up that T1 spam, it's got to be the Razorback. It can fire multiple times, it's very, very heavy, it does a tremendous amount of damage. It's just a all-around perfect unit for dealing with those spams of units. There's also no anti-air included in this composition, which is really a shame because it's a very expensive composition. Oh, a bunch of these starlights are right next to each other. They do explode when they die. They explode quite ferociously, actually. Yeah, so that actually is going to be most of this army pushed back now by gunships from the red player. Now, despite the damage done on the front lines, the backline economies are still tremendously powerful. Frosty, UUI, as well as Koya Boy both have several fusion reactors as well as all their metal extractors, while the backline here for the blue team is just now getting their metal extractors and some power back up and running. Reviving this fusion reactor, that's nice to see. I do like that. I'm wondering why the amphibious units stopped here. Would have loved to see some more of those hovercraft continuing to build and continuing to siege on this line, considering the fact that they never even stopped you. You know, they never built static defenses over there, so there's no reason. It's easy to look at that and think, oh, well, you know, Eventually they're going to build static defense, so I probably shouldn't run by units anymore. But keep doing it. Keep doing it. Keep running those units by if they're not going to build static defense. Don't just assume at the very least. You might have something like this, where they have 2 Tigers, which do not constitute a static defense, guarding the entire sea lane position here. Is dot dot out of the game? Dot dot does not have a constructor, it looks like, so just hanging out in the match, hoping that a constructor comes his way. Oh, oh, okay, there we go. A constructor was just now shared to him. That's funny. Poor dot dot, man. Probably been waiting for a constructor for a good long while now. Res bots are out, and I'd love to see that. Definitely important that whenever you go for a push, you have a couple of res bots behind to make sure that you eat up, 1, all of your dead units, but 2, all of their dead units, right? Making sure that all that metal, whether you win or lose the fight, just make sure that most of that metal ends up back in your hands. What a tremendous maze we've got going on over here. These light amphibious tanks can't crash through the T2 walls here, so they are forced to just make their way through. This is the labyrinth right here. The Minotaur would be quaking in his boots. Love that we've got the heavy laser towers too, which can just barely see over those walls and fire away. It's very funny that that's the strategy we're going for here. I love to see it. What you can also do is put landmines in this, right? Just put a row of landmines. What a hilarious way to do this. Oh, they did get the Twitcher eventually, which is the thing that was actually building those walls. But yeah, that's pretty funny. I'm glad to see that this maze actually worked. We rarely ever get to see the walls used in such a way. I'm really stoked that we actually got to see that. That's pretty funny. Once you get to T3, it hardly matters because they can just stomp through those walls. But yeah, if you just manage to do it at just the right time, you manage to get it out just to the right part of the game, yeah, they can certainly be very difficult to deal with. Purple is rebuilding here. That fusion reactor was resurrected, which is great to see. Rebuilding some more build power here as well. Gonna eventually be able to claw themselves back into, Fire Jub Jub that is, gonna be able to claw themselves back into well, not a great position, not a phenomenal position, but a position nonetheless. Aerial-based position. We'll call it that. Meanwhile, Koya Boy has already gone up to tremendous amounts of fighters and bombers, and it looks like the bombers are moving towards the southwestern side of the map. Maybe gonna think about going for a bombing run on this geothermal over here. Or maybe the geos in the, or not the geos, the fusion reactors in the back line here. We'll have to keep an eye on that, but in the meantime, a couple of battleships were brought out here. Battleships to kill ticks. That's, you know, it's not what they signed up for. They really imagined something a whole lot more glamorous. We've got tons of Razorbacks on the front line now, actually. That's 9 Razorbacks. It's going to be very difficult to break through. Those are one tough unit, and yeah, breaking through them is never a fun task, not unless you have T3 of your own. Oh, it looks like a ton of these missile ships are actually raining down on her bubble. She's going to have to get on out of there. Yep, back on off, because, yeah, those missile ships, they do not care. They will rain down siege from above. Justice from above, as the age-old adage goes. Looks like now is the time these bombers are called into duty. There's a couple of flak trucks here, which is actually really crucial. If these flak can get a couple of decent shots off, I think this might be thwarted. Yeah, there's flag towers all around. I'm glad with the amount of anti-air here. I think we should save the fighters in reserve. And the flak will eventually shoot down these bombers. Now, luckily that wasn't completed. That advanced fusion was not completed there, so the base didn't explode instantaneously, but it did at least cause a lot of damage right here, as you can see that now. Sprouticus is in a little bit of an energy deficit. I guess it's not true, actually. I'm looking at their resources bar here. I guess it's really metal that's needed, and well, there's one way to get a lot of metal, and it's to eat up the front lines. Gonna be difficult to do with these Razorbacks out, though. Eventually, the fighters are cleaned up. Really happy with that amount of anti-air. That was very nicely done. Not much to bomb, TBH. Yeah, he's not really wrong. There's a lot of fusion reactors that are all spaced out. This is very inconvenient for bombing. There's a lot of energy converters that are all spaced out, also very inconvenient for bombing, although I think these are still close enough that they might chain react on each other. It's not a very good base for bombing. There's not a lot of potent targets. You could get these over here, these advanced fusion reactors for Markiv. You could also get some of the advanced fusion reactors in the backline here, like there's one coming up for Fire's Jub, although it's not really coming up too fast. Razorbacks are pushing in, and there's not really enough to stop them. Starlights are definitely the best choice, right? It's just choose your best choice. That was a nuke going down there, or was it a commander? Oh, it was a commander explosion, all right. Anyway, Razorbacks are still looking tremendously healthy. Lechonitis, or Lechonitis, maybe Leconitis? I don't know, however you're supposed to say it. Going for the D-guns in the backline here. Oh, gets three of these Razorbacks before going down here. Cornelius should definitely be doing the same thing. A couple of these advanced exploiters, though. Actually putting in the work, yeah, doing quite a lot of damage here. Oh, nice little chain reaction. There's a fusion reactor goes up in smoke. Last of the Razorbacks will be D-gunned, but that is a huge amount of damage to the front line of the blue team. And now we're in a even position, yeah, where I thought the bombing run at the beginning of the game would have shut down the blue team entirely. They managed to claw themselves back with a heroic push. And now the red team, which was on the red foot, has rebounded all the way back with a tremendous amount of Razorbacks. But this could be a game ender right here. Tons of Marauders already pumped out, and we're just waiting in the dark. The dark for the blue team, anyways. 25 Marauders, well, more like 23 Marauders. Headed across the map. Where are they queued to? Looks like they are going out into the ocean, going to go for a swim. That is, of course, the Marauder's superpowers, the fact that it can dive into the ocean with no fear and resurface on enemy lands. Very, very dangerous. Not sure why we're sacrificing the anti-air here. That definitely shouldn't be moving forward. Neither should the Mauser, all things considered. Frankly, I think we'd probably we'd be doing a lot better if we stopped going for Bulls and went for Jaguar instead, the Lightning tank. It's a lot better against spam, and you need something a little quicker here. You can see now, multiple players all just sending out rows and rows and rows of tick spam. You need a Juno. You basically just need to make a Juno at this point, especially on Supreme Strait. Those ticks can only go through one place, and it's right here. With 2 Junos, you can cover this entire area. With 4 Junos, you can basically keep a Juno down somewhere on the Strait, basically 24/7. That would be the correct response right now. Building lines of units can be inefficient for the reason that they are prone to friendly fire, and also you might have something like this where ticks eventually start to leak through. Units shooting at each other. It's a mess. It's a nightmare. There we go. A Juno missile did land eventually. It's going to kill a few of them. It's in a really bad position, but better there than nowhere, right? Where did that Juno come from, by the way? I wasn't paying attention. I would argue that it's probably in the best interest of the backline to be paying attention to that sort of thing, but certainly everyone kind of has the responsibility of doing that. Trying to find where that Juno missile came from. Did it? No, it wouldn't have come from the red team, right? Oh, it definitely could have. Juno's here for the red team, but at this point, those would do way more damage than anything else. Bunch of Shiva broke through the Great Wall here. Unfortunate. Yeah, that T3 tends to do that. Shiva are not afraid of friendly fire, so they will happily just shoot at their own toes if there's a bunch of ticks standing around, which does make ticks fairly efficient at dealing with Shivas, oddly enough. Just one more example of why the tick is the most powerful unit in the game. Anyway, these Shiva were not stopped. They managed to take down a commander that was uncloaked. The Shiva continue their march forward. Those rockets are obviously very dangerous. If they can manage to land a couple of those on a base, it will go down quicker than you could say T3 experimental gantry. Ticks still moving forward. Razorbacks are being resurrected in the backlines. Really like to see that. I'd love to see this bad boy move forward. No reason to keep the pressure so high on your front line. You might as well move forward a little bit. Try and give yourself a little bit of breathing room. And I do like to see that they are resurrecting instead of reclaiming, though. That's one way to keep yourself in a game that seems otherwise completely lost, is just resurrecting, right? Your enemies spend so much metal to invest in a tremendous army to throw at you if you can just throw it right back at them. Oftentimes you'll catch them off guards. Or you can kill their army and then you already have the res bots from resurrecting and you can just go eat up their army in the second engagement that you take. Bombers here are struggling to find their purpose. They are desperately trying to find something to attack here. Eventually they're going to see these advanced fusion reactors, and it probably won't be... Yeah, there we go. We are eventually going to target those down, but it's been a while, and these fusion reactors have been a prime target for a good long minute. Glad to see those go down. That's an excellent move by Koya Boy, definitely swinging things back in the red team's favor. You can see the red team at 1.1-ish thousand metal per second, with the blue at only 560. So the resource economy is way in the favor of the red team, and I don't think it's going to be stopping anytime soon. Well, I guess Koya Boy isn't really ecoing at the moment. Primarily, it's just Quickster who is making a lot of eco, building some of these advanced fusion reactors, building some of those advanced energy converters, doing a great job of getting tons and tons of power and energy and metal and all that good stuff out to the enemy team here. A couple of Shiva just taking a break on the beaches, reclining in Malibu, just thinking about their vacation time that they cannot wait to spend. This Marauder push, meanwhile, has swept through the shore lane, which again was never fortified, and now they're in the backline. Second time that the enemy has hit this backline, and you can see the scaling here really coming into effect. With all those bombing runs taking down basically everything here for Fire Jub, he was just set back a foot and is now way behind. Excellently done here by Koya Boy as well as Frosty UUI, who is, of course, the one controlling all these Marauders. Gets the advanced fusion reactor, shuts down the spam of units that was once again established here. Again, it feels like the right way to counter this, you know, an eye for an eye, but it really just doesn't work as well as a couple of Junos and some medium static defense. Anyway, it looks like with that hit, the blue team will decide that that is all that she wrote. The red take the victory in an excellent game of Supreme Straits. Love to see it. Absolutely love to see it. Hey, if you love to see it too, leave a comment down below and let me know what you liked about this video, or if you see anything that I could change or adjust. Always happy to hear feedback from you guys. And more than ever, I wish you a tremendous rest of your day. I will see you in the next video.